Welcome back. The slow implementation of SADC resolutions are making it challenging for the region to reach its objectives in line with its strategic development goals for 2015 and 2020. Well, lack of funding has been identified as one of the main contributing factors that leads to some of those delays. We now cross to our reporter Mweli Masilela at the SADC Summit in Pretoria for more on this.
Yes, we are coming to you live from the OR Tambo building here in Pretoria. This is where the 37th SADC Summit is taking place. We are continuing with our coverage. As you all know that today the focus is on the Double Troika meeting that is taking place, having discussions on the issue of peace, security and stability in the region. But now we are going to talk more about the issue of growing the economies of the member states of the SADC region. I'm now joined by the Minister of National Development Planning from Zambia, Mr. Lucky Mulusa. If you can take us through, we know that in Zimbabwe there was this launch of the industrialization strategy. How is it going? How is the action plan in terms of delivering?
No, obviously, I will not be able to comment about Zimbabwe because I'm in Zambia. I'm the Minister of National Development Planning in Zambia, but I know that what I'll be commenting about in Zambia is what is happening in Zimbabwe, is what could be happening in Malawi and the rest of the region, because we tend to adopt best practices everywhere as a SADC region. Now, in Zambia, we've recognized that underdevelopment is a risk to the region, and it is a risk in the sense that we will not be able to achieve appropriate levels of both economic and political integration if at all countries are disproportionately developed, because then it creates risks, social and economic risks, when you open up the borders and the populations shift to areas which are more developed than those that are not developed, or areas that offer better economic opportunities. Now, we've looked at what our challenges are in Zambia, and what our challenges are is that the country is highly underdeveloped in terms of presence of infrastructure which can underwrite economic development. And so we are rolling out infrastructure to make sure that doing business in Zambia becomes competitive, and that our goods and services that are produced in Zambia become competitive both within the region and also in terms of export to the rest of the global market. We've also realized that we are not taking advantage of the potential that we have, consumption potential for our country. The consumption potential is being fed by foreign imports. And that's an opportunity that we want to take advantage of and make sure that we domesticate the production of goods and services which feed our population. And so our focus is economic diversification. Economic diversification meaning that we want to grow the contribution to the GDP by agriculture, tourism, mining, and manufacturing, to make sure that we create the necessary jobs that our people need in the country, and we reduce on unemployment levels. Over and above that, we make sure that through creation of jobs, we then reduce on the incidences of poverty, including vulnerability. So ours is economic diversification, and what we've done is we've rolled out the 7th National Development Plan, where the unifying theme is that we have adopted a multi-sectoral approach, and that doesn't leave anybody behind.
Well, as you've talked about the issue of regional integration, I want to know, because funding has always been an issue. There are programs that are put in place by the SADC countries, but you find that there's no resources or funding in terms of delivering those projects. How do you ensure that projects are funded?
In fact, at the moment, it would be, it might be premature to talk about funding. We should talk about what is happening to the available funding at the moment. The absorption capacity of projects and the funds that are available is very low in the entire SADC region. So we need to revisit the reasons why absorption capacity is so low before we even talk about funding, because there are funded projects that are not being undertaken. Now, what we've noticed in Zambia is that lack of accountability and responsibility in terms of there being a robust performance management system is actually causing lack of absorption capacity. So you'd find that even the donor community might put funds available. Even in the SADC region, we've got the Southern African Development Bank, which allocates 30% to the region, and 70% is lent into the South African economy. The question is that 30% being taken up? If it is not being taken up, the question is why? So before you talk about the availability of funding, you need to talk about what is happening to the current available resources that are not being taken advantage of. And like I'm saying, the inability for the region to implement a uniform performance management system, both at institutional and at individual level, has actually caused lack of appropriate levels of absorption capacity.
Well, thank you very much. That is Lucky Mulusa. He is the Minister of National Development Planning from Zambia, just giving us insight on how they are doing their things in Zambia in terms of promoting economic growth and trade. So he is saying that the issue of accountability is very important when it comes to ensuring that SADC projects are implemented. We'll give you more as the day progresses. It's back to you in studio.
Right, thanks very much indeed. Mweli Masilela there at the SADC summit, speaking to the Zambian mining minister.